This is a map of the Halifax area. Can you guess where the city is of Halifax on the map? Right, yes. Especially here.
Yep.
On this side is Dartmouth, but that's the core of the city where there's all that pink. So what we are, there is Cranberry Lake, so we are out here. And the map that you have in your hand was created from this. It's basically what you have is a section of this made a bit larger,
yeah.
So it's easier to read.
Sorry.
So this has white areas, just like your map.
Yeah.
It has green areas in blue, and it's got contour lines. Now, one thing I want you to notice before I roll this up and put it away is that there are vertical lines. You know what I mean by vertical?
Yeah.
They go up and down.
Yeah.
And they're horizontal lines, and they make little boxes. You see the little boxes?
Yeah.
Those are called grid lines.
Longitude and latitude.
Longitude and latitude. And we're going to talk about that next. So there is a distance on the side of each box, and it's the same. It's exactly the same for all those boxes. Can you guess what that distance is?
1 kilometer.
Right!
How'd you guess
Exactly.
that, Sash?
That's very good. Very
I
good.
didn't tell him that one.
That's very good. So the top of the map points in what direction? I don't mean points in really on Earth, but I mean, what does it represent? The top of the map. North, right. And that's true of all maps unless it's a dinky little map in a magazine or something. It might have show you that north is in another direction, but standardly, all maps, the top of the map, so when you're reading the map, the top is north, the bottom is south, and if you go in this direction, where are you going? Out, west, right. And in the other direction, east. So now we're going to go back to the map you have in your hand and understand what the various features are on the map. This map shows the Bluff Wilderness Hiking Trail, and that's in 4 colors: yellow, blue, red, and orange. Each color is associated with a loop. So the first loop, which we're on right now, is in yellow, and it's called the Pot Lake Loop because it goes around Pot Lake. The second loop, called Indian Hill Loop, goes around an area called Indian Hill, and I'll show you that on another map. It's always been called Indian Hill, well, I say always, for the last 100 years. And then the third loop in red goes around the Bluff, which is a high piece of land that's been called the Bluff as long as Indian Hill has been called Indian Hill. And the trail is named after this area. The last loop goes around this very wet area called the Haymarsh. So it's called the Haymarsh Loop. These blue lines at the top, what do you think they are?
Highways.
Right. The 103 highway, which actually splits at this point and then comes together here. This star here, what do you suppose this black star at the top is? The what? Parking lot, right. So that's where we parked our car, and then we walked along this brown line, which is a trail called the BLT Trail, Beachville Lakeside Timberlake Trail, which allows bicycles, ATVs, all-terrain vehicles, as well as hikers. And it's an all-purpose trail. When you come here to the beginning of the Bluff Trail, which is called the Trailhead, right next to Cranberry Lake, no ATVs are allowed on this, no mountain bikes. It's simply for hiking. Now, you see a lot of blue on the map, and the blue is what?
lakes or like water.
Water, right, exactly. And the green, what do you suppose the green is?
Land and forest.
Land and forest. But there are areas which don't have green, which are white. What do you suppose the difference is?
Rock areas.
And the most familiar kind of stone around here is what? Do you know that? You know what it's called? Granite, right.
You're standing beside.
So
Do you know what that kind of big rock is called in geology?
this is an example of granite.
Yeah, but it's an erratic. Do you know what an erratic is?
No.
It's a big rock that was dropped by the glaciers as they retreated. So this is all a glacial landscape.
So the lakes were carved out by a glacier, and these rocks dropped, these erratics were
Dropped
by
here.
receding ice. So it's important to know these features. Now here's something more difficult to figure out. You see these areas which have, looks like little grass growing in them. They're blue, and they have little patches of something sticking out. Do you know what they are? They're marshy areas. They will be very wet, and often there's a stream going through. So when I pointed out the hay marsh before, you see that's a very wet area. I've actually walked across it, but you get very wet walking across it. You can do it. Sometimes the water will come over your boots. Now let's see. There are other things to notice on the map. You notice this dotted line here?
Yeah.
What do you think that is? That's it's going across land. You can't paddle a canoe over there, can you?
No,
Oh yeah, I think you have it. Say what you were what you were thinking. Trail to a lake, right?
Lake for canoes.
Right. And so it's called a portage. It's a French word meaning carry. So you carry the canoe, you paddle in as far as you can go, and then you carry it this distance when you're going from upper Five Bridge Lake to middle Five Bridge Lake. In fact, you can start up here and you can canoe all the way down to the ocean using these various portages and the lakes. You can do it fairly quickly if you're really experienced. Some people have done it in a day. I did it in 3 days. So people go at various speeds. But it is a famous route used by the Mi'kmaq to go from this area where the trail begins all the way to the ocean. It's been used for a long, long time. But there's something else to notice on the map, and that's all these little brown lines. Sasha, can you figure out what they are? See these lines here, the squiggly lines? They cover the green part, they cover the white part.
Terrain mountain.
That's very good.
What did you say, Sasha? To speak up a bit?
Terrain mountain and mountains.
Terrain and mountains? Okay.
That's very good, because terrain means ground, so it tells you, when you talk about the terrain, you're talking about how the ground curves and is shaped. And that's what these lines tell you, the elevation. They tell you when you're going up and when you're going down. So you said mountain. Of course, we don't have anything that's high enough here to be called literally a mountain, but we have hills here. And so if you get used to what we say reading the map, reading the contour lines, you can figure out where you are, partly by noticing whether you're high up. You can see that you're high up, then you try to locate a place on the map which is high up. So for example, this spot right here, see where I'm pointing? That's really not on the trail. But you see these contour lines. The distance between each contour line is 5 meters. So about something like 16 feet. So you have lots of contour lines here, which means that there's quite a drop between here and the water down here. And that's very important to know, contour lines. So a map that shows the contours of the line, of the land, A map that shows the contours of the land by the lines is called a topographical map, or some people just say topo map for short. So a topographical map is one that tells you how the land changes, and it tells you that by these contour lines. Now there are also little numbers on the map. You see these little tiny numbers with a dot next to them? What do you suppose they mean? That's a hard one. You want to take a guess? Do you have any idea, Sasha? Kai? You want to take a... Well, the numbers on the map get, generally speaking, lower as you go in this direction towards the ocean. And when you get right to the ocean, right at the edge of the ocean, at Terrence Bay, they're going to be 0. So what do you suppose? It has something to do with elevation.
The height.
That's right, how high you are above the ocean. Sea level is 0, so this is the elevation above sea level. So this number here, my eyes aren't very good. What does that say? 117. So that's the number of meters above sea level. And a meter is, how many feet is a meter?
2.
It's a little more than that. It's 3 feet, it's actually 39 inches, so it's 3 inches more than 3 feet. So roughly, if you multiply this by 3, you get, and then add a little bit, you get a number that's approaching 400. Okay, so this is a high point. But as you go down, this whole area, all these lakes, involve a flow of water down towards the ocean. And it's called a watershed because it's shedding water towards the ocean.